Thank you, Lisa. So this morning, as we said, I'm here with Sir George Allen. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and I do remember.
Lisa really brought back some memories when she mentioned things like Dateline and stuff like that from the old times.
Not the old times.
So today, today we are here to talk about not only your distinguished accomplishments, but specifically your memoir, so to say, The Grooming of a Chancellor. So what was your inspiration behind The Grooming of a Chancellor? What was the focus, what the message you wanted to get across?
But first of all, thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for being here.
The inspiration one of the reasons, there are several reasons for doing something like this. One of the reasons for doing it is to say to all the little boys in Chagaramas and Merricks and Tunapuna and all over the Caribbean, this is something I can do. To point out that the journey I've taken is not an impossible journey. That some little boy or girl can go to elementary school, can go to secondary school, can go to University of the West Indies, can become a professor of ABCD, can enter international world and be better than George Allen was. That's one of the inspiration. The second inspiration is that when you go, your grandchildren often don't remember what these times were like, the times in which their grandparents grew up. So I hope in this memoir to leave some idea for my grandchildren and their children of what it was like when Grandpa grew up.
The history and all of that, because even myself as a young man, there are things from the past that I would not have been aware of or really understood.
Precisely.
The change in times that you were going through and what it meant.
Precisely.
Of the decolonization, so to say,
Precisely.
of the era.
Precisely.
You are a very vigorous activist in regards to non-communicable diseases and all like that. Is that also included in your book?
It is. It is. That comes at probably a later stage of the book. It is said that the book can be divided into phases. I tell this story of my growing up in a place called Street Road in Lucas Street in Barbados, a tiny little village in Barbados. I tell that story. I tell the story of my relationships with my grandmother at age 76 and how we used to go to her home New Year's Eve, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
Then I tell the story of my going to secondary school, Harrison College, which is better than Queen's Royal College, incidentally. I tell the story of...
some people may have been putting on frongs when they...
Right. I went to a secondary school in Barbados, Harrison College. Yes. Then I left Harrison College and went to Jamaica, the University College of the West Indies. Those were the early days of the University College of the West Indies, of UE. And those was the UCWI, it was the University College of London before it became independent. And I went there, and that was really a change in my life. I say in the book, when I left Barbados at age 18, 19, I was a boy. And when I left Jamaica, I was a man. I had a change. And in the University of the West Indies, that's what I like to say. That's the time I became a West Indian. I became associated with people from all over the Caribbean. I got to understand a lot about the rest of the Caribbean. I'd never been to Trinidad before.
Really?
Trinidad for me was a distant place, was as distant as London. But then you got to interact with Trinidadians, Tobagonians, in Saint-Jean, etc. And all of us came to realize, we are one. There's no fundamental difference between one Caribbean people. Yes. And that was a great motivating force for me. After I left the University of the West Indies, I graduated. I like to tell people, have a lot of fun. All undergraduates should have fun. I had a lot of fun as an undergraduate. But eventually I decided to work, and I graduated in medicine. And then after graduating in medicine, I came back to Barbados to work as a while. Then I went to do my postgraduate training. And then after my postgraduate training, I worked in a research unit. It was a fantastic time working in this research unit. One of the gentlemen, one of the few last man I called boss, because I was so taken by his intellect, his humanity, his capacity to mentor
somebody
people.
You looked up to.
John Waterloo was his name. I worked there I did my doctorate there in studies of nutrition, malnutrition. Why do malnourished children become swollen? what happens to malnourished children's kidneys and hearts, et cetera, et cetera. Then I left there, became chairman of the department, professor of medicine. And then I had that probably was one of my, all these periods were interesting periods, but the ability to speak to young people, to train young people, to teach young people is one of the most fascinating experiences one can have.
And the young people are the future, you know, so that planting that seed in them is something that would help carry forth the future generations, and hopefully that philosophy would move forward as well.
Right.
Yes.
And yesterday I was on the airplane, and this lady passed me and said, "So George Ali, I want to tell you that you are the inspiration of my getting my PhD." That is the kind of pleasure, what the reward one gets from being this kind of work. My interest in the non-communicable diseases started, of course, when I was a professor, when I was a clinician, professor of medicine. These were very common disorders. Then when I went to work in the Pan American Health Organization, which was the phase after I was the professor of medicine, I went to work in the Pan American Health Organization. It soon became clear as director that that was a major problem in the Caribbean, in the Americas as a whole. But my interest, I used to say my activist role, really started after I left PAHO. I became very involved in the whole area. Why don't countries take this problem more seriously? Why don't countries accept that this is the world's largest health problem? When we speak of these non-communicable diseases, we're speaking of billions of people who are infected.
Right, yes.
1.4 billion people in the world have high blood pressure. Would you know that?
No, I did not know that. So
it is the world's commonest disease.
High blood pressure.
High blood pressure. 1.4 billion people have high blood in the world have high blood pressure.
And that's only one example of a non-communicable disease.
That is correct. So we're talking about billions of people. You have to. These diseases cost countries, trillions of dollars. And we know that if you address the risk factors, you can prevent and control them. Right. That is one of the things that urges me on, the possibility. It is not things that you cannot control.
Right.
These things you can control.
Would you say the nutrition, your nutrition background is something that you could use toward educating people on controlling and preventing these non-communicable diseases?
Absolutely correct. Because there are 4 basic factors. 1, smoking. 2, alcohol. 3, diet. 4, physical activity. I'm very pleased to see all of your colleagues in the studio are slim. I'm very pleased at that. If you control those 4 diseases, 4 risk factors, you have a great possibility of controlling these diseases. Right. And you are, I won't say frustration, you don't have the luxury to be frustrated. You're anxious that the world should see that this can happen, and especially the Caribbean, we should see that this can happen.
All right. Before we wrap up, how does your memoir relate to what's going on in the world today, and what can we take from it for today's environment?
First of all, I can tell you where you can get it. You can get it from Amazon.com. I think you also can get it from the University Bookstore here.
At UE?
At UE. You can get it. You can get it there. And I would only ask, if you get it, write and tell me if you like it or don't like it.
I believe I'm an avid reader, and just knowing that the history of the work that you put into this, and it's your memoir, and as well as the effect it's meant to have, I believe I'll be making a pass by the University Bookstore and getting myself a copy, because things like this is enriching, especially for young people, and I always look up to people like that. So thank you very much for being here, Chancellor.
My pleasure.
Sir. And now we'll go over to, yes, so thank you for being here again, and we are going to come back in a little bit. We're just going to stop for a little break, but we'll be back with much more. Thank you for watching.
Keep slim.